Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today. This is Zoe Tant, the Tantalising Stamper, and I'm going to show you how to do blackout embossing, so you get this sort of effect. Or you might get this sort of effect with black and white, which is not coloured yet. So you can use whatever colours you want to, but you will need a darker colour to go over all the bits that you colour in so that they really pop once you use that darker colour. Today I'm using the Happy Hibiscus Hybrid Embossing Folder. So I don't know how well you can see this, possibly if I let's just put a bit of coloured card in there so you can see the design, which is rather lovely, and even with a dog hair on it. And it's not actually available yet, so when you see this you'll have to fall in love with it and then just wait a few more days. It's coming online with our online exclusives in November, and that's the embossing folder. And then it also, if you buy it as the little bundle, but you can buy it as even more with a stamp set, you can get this set of dies. So this piece will cut out your, as you can see, brand new to me too. This will cut out, I believe, let's have a look. Let's see, probably somewhere like, nope, not like this. There we go. It's going to cut out those. And the beauty with these is that you can put the die inside the embossing folder with your card, and you can emboss it and cut it all at the same time. But when you do, it's best to have the actual cutting blade facing uppermost, so there's the least pressure going onto the embossing folder to cut it. It just cuts the card and doesn't then leave any marks. So you've got that die, and then you've also got all of these others. So you've got a couple of leaves, these lovely pretty little flowers that cut and emboss at the same time, a nice label which looks like this. And then these two are open dies because they cut out leaves from the stamp set. So if you buy the whole lot, obviously you can use those. But I'm just using these ones today because that's all I bought. I decided that was all I wanted. And you've got this lovely circle die as well, which will make nice labels. So without further ado, let's get moving. So what we're going to do, I've cut some white card. Now this embossing folder is 6 by 6, so I've cut some white card that I'm going to pop in there. On this occasion, it doesn't matter really which way you put your card in, because you're actually going to use the deboss side to colour, and you just pop your card in and emboss it. Now, because I want although this is a 3D embossing folder and gives you a really deep emboss, I want it as deep as I can possibly get it. So you will know your own die cutting machine. So it's up to you whether you can put in an extra piece of card as a shim, just to make sure that you get it really, really, really deeply embossed. What you need to take into account though is if it reaches a point fairly quickly once you've started turning the handle that it won't go through, don't force it, because you will crack the spine on your embossing folder. But of course each machine is slightly different, so some may not take a shim at all. I'm lucky that mine does take a thin one. Okay, so I'm just going to do that now. Here we go. So I've embossed it. I'm going to take it out and you'll be able to get a feel for how deep this is. If we put that out of the way for now. And I'm actually going to, as I said before, use this back side, that was my spare piece of card, to colour in using, I'm going to use alcohol markers. And the colours I've got are light and dark, fresh freesia, I've got bubble bath, and I've got peach pie, and then I've got some greens on the side as well that I might do a little bit of green. Now I'm not going to use the whole thing, so I'm not going to colour it all in, because there's nothing worse than you sitting watching me colouring, although I will try and speed it up. and then I'll show you what else you need to do. So bear with me while I do some colouring. So this is a dark peach that I'm using to just add a little bit of light and shade where you can see where the light falls. Now you can see I've gone over the edge a little bit, and you're trying not to press, to protect the nib on your pens, but also you don't need to press very hard. You're just colouring in. So I'm using all these embossed bits to add a bit of extra colour. So I will continue with the colouring and be back very shortly. So I don't need it all, but I will also show you on that side a slightly different way of approaching it. Depends on how inky your ink pads are and how heavy-handed you are and stuff like that. So only little things that are going to affect it, but it will make it a little bit easier for you. We'll just add a little bit more there. And you've probably realised, even though it's speeded up, that I haven't been too precise about the colouring, and if I've gone over the edge, then that's not a problem either, because what we're now going to do is that I'm using Mossy Meadow. I said a dark colour. My Mossy Meadow is quite inky, so the difficulty is that you can catch some bits that you don't want to, but there's ways around it. You can cut a shape out of it afterwards, whatever. But what I did was stand my ink pad. So this is the end I'm going to use. So I've stood it up that way, so some of the ink runs down. And I'm just going to use that end. And what I'm going to do is swipe it across quite as lightly as I can, but also firmly, if that makes sense, so that it adds the colour and it makes those flowers pop. Now, you may or may not like these white bits, so it's entirely up to you. But as you can see, if you go too many times, you start to blot out the flower, whereas if you add some colour, it certainly enhances it and adds a bit more detail and makes the detail pop. So it's really personal choice and what you want to do. I've perhaps not gone quite far enough down there, so I think I'm okay. I've got enough for what I want to do. So if I just chop that, and then I'll show you what else you can do with the other side, and then I'll show you my, we have 7.5. I'll show you my finished card, and then you've got that piece that you could put as a band across the centre of a card, and you can build it up with other cards in between. So this is how I go about building. I sometimes tend to, if we get a piece of card like that, we've got a border, and we can just work out whether we like that or not, and whether we'd want it there, or whether we want to bring in the fresh freesia or the bubble bath, sorry. So it's really up to you. There's lots of flexibility in it. If you don't like not precise, it may not be for you, but if you're happy to give it a go and a whirl, then it makes some fantastic designs, and you've got the deeper colours showing through, and it really makes the images pop from it, and is another use for an embossing folder. So we'll just put those to one side, and as I said, I will show you a finished card in a moment. But what I'm going to do with this one is show you what you can do. The alternative, if you've got inky ink pads and you're worried about how messy it will be, is you could, before you actually colour it in, you can swipe. And that's probably a little bit easier to do, certainly with a pad like this. But the common colour to do the blackout embossing, as it says, blackout, so you can use black and do this. And again, my black is possibly a little bit dry, but that then highlights bits and pieces for you. Again, if I bring in a piece of white, you can see it coming together, and you can then add whatever colour, or you could leave it monotone. If I just show you with the other piece as well, that if we do use the green, you can do the same. So if you start with the green, that then adds all this detail, and you can then colour it with the colours that you want. And the green is quite nice because it's not quite as blackout, if that makes sense, as the black, although my black obviously isn't too inky at the moment. So it gives you lots of possibilities. Then you can use these pieces, so you can see I've made several earlier, and just keep them, and that's the piece I've done today. You can keep them and use them for whatever you want to. You could even use the die if you've got the right piece, and cut those bits out so that they're just a feature on your card. But this is a card that I made. I've used a Mossy Meadow base. I've added a piece of white that again I've embossed with the folder, but I've used the embossed side, so this is all raised, just again to add more texture to it. Then I've cut a piece down to where I wanted it. Now underneath here was a bit of a bleh, so I've used that label that I showed you earlier. Let's just cover all that mess up. I've used that label. I've embossed a simple happy birthday on it, and then I've used the dies that I showed you at the beginning, which are here, and you can see I've used these two. You get two of each, which is really nice, so you can cut a mass lot at the same time. But I've used the larger one and the smaller one, and then I've top and tailed them. I've also added some twine, so that was one of my dogs. And just letting you know that she's here and wanting to say hello. I've added some pearls, which I've put somewhere safe. So this is the twine, gold twisted thread. So it's really nice. Great for all these sorts of projects. And if you don't like tying bows, you can just loop it to look like a bow and pop it underneath. And it also shreds quite nicely if you wanted a frayed edge or whatever. That's the gold twisted thread. And then the pearls that I've used are blooming pearls, and you get all these different colours. So they're rather nice, and two different sizes. So I've used those and popped them on, and it makes a nice birthday card. My sentiment, as I said, has covered up a bit of a splodge where it went a bit further than I wanted it to, but it makes a different sort of texture, and really is a great use for the embossing folder as well as this one. So it shows you both ways, and then you can feel this texture here. So it's a great one. I hope you've enjoyed it. This is part of the Totally Techniques blog hop in October 2024. So do go to my blog, stampingscene.blogspot.com, and you'll be able to look at the other demonstrators and what they've done with this technique. Thanks for joining me. Take care. Bye-bye.